Hey, True Believers, Englentine here, and this is Comic Book Origins, where we take a look at our favorite superhero or villain's first appearance in comic books. In this case, as you could already tell, it's Monica Rambeau, Captain Marvel, the Captain Marvel I grew up with. Now, Monica Rambeau was a police officer in New Orleans, Louisiana, where she was born, quickly rising through the ranks and positioning herself as a lieutenant of its Harbor Division. While off duty, she helps a scientist track down an international dictator who wanted to use an energy machine to take over the United States, as evil dictators often want to do. Now, after they thwart his plans, she attempts to destroy the machine, and it gets bombarded by extra-dimensional energy, and as a result, she gains the ability to turn into any form of energy along the electromagnetic spectrum and discharge it. Before we get going, here's a little hint on the comic book origin we're going to be doing next week, so make sure you have clicked like, share, subscribed, hit that notification bell, and of course, in order to help the channel out, go on over to Patreon or to Ko-Fi, links in the description below, and drop $1 in the till. Now, without further ado, let's get this party started. Monica Rambeau, Captain Marvel, made her first appearance in Amazing Spider-Man number 16, or annual number 16, and this is a 40-page book, so I'm not going to be as dialogue-heavy as I usually am. I sometimes read through the dialogue and find jokes, and I will still, but it's going to be more descriptive this time around, just to get the story and what's going on out. Overall, let's judge the cover here. Let's take a look at it. It's not bad. I wouldn't say it's iconic. It's definitely striking, the use of the reds and black, especially in Monica Rambeau's what looks like skeletal structure, but why would her costume have that going on? Anyway, of course, we see the heroes looking on as if they're amazed there's a new hero on board, and overall, the cover has me whelmed. It's okay. It's nothing great, and I understand I'm looking to face the wrath of many a comic book fan because this was a collaboration between John Romita's Jr. and Sr. So when you send the hate my way in the comment section, do not be gentle, just be clever. The book opens on a traditional splash page, which you know I always enjoy, talking about how Peter Parker was a normal guy until he was bitten by the radioactive spider where he got powers. One of the things it says, though, is that he's able to lift 40 times his own weight. Now, if you look at him, you figure his height and build and everything, he's probably about $150. Let's say $160. And if you talk about 40 times, it ends up only being about 6 tons. So the Marvel Universe, the official Marvel Universe, you know what I'm trying, official handbook to the Marvel Universe said that he could lift 10, so they're a little bit off on that particular one. Anyway, it introduces the name of the story, Who's That Lady? I can't sing, so I'm going to stop now. Awed by Monica's beauty and confused why his spider sense went off, Peter Parker decides he needs to follow her. He has plenty of time to check out this lovely lady from a discreet distance, of course. I don't want her to think I'm some sort of pervert. Don't worry, Peter. She may not think you're a pervert, but you're pretty much coming off that way to the readers. Peter sees that Monica is strolling down a part of town that native New Yorkers never stroll down. Let's ignore the fact that she's now surrounded by native New Yorkers, but Peter's onto something. So he jumps down a dark alley. And of course, while Peter Parker is actually changing his clothes, I saw this in Deadpool 2's original trailer, right? Where he jumps into the phone booth and someone gets murdered. Well, she's walking down in the street and some guy starts making the, yo, chicky baby mama sounds, and his partner decides he wants the purse. So she chases him down an alley, and the gentleman we now know as Mojo grabs her from behind. Something Mojo finds out to be is a huge mistake because she quickly flips him into the partner that we haven't found. Have we heard his name yet? Anyway, the partner says, looks like you found us a rough one, Mojo. Don't bother me none, as he pulls a switchblade. Why don't you do us both a favor, sugar, and make nice? And of course, as he tries to stab her, she dodges and ends up beating the teetotal hell out of him, causing his partner to run away. So Spider-Man arrives better late than ever, knocks out the purse snatcher, as Monica Rambeau has no interest in him, doesn't turn around, doesn't look what's going on, doesn't even hear Spider-Man taking him out. This is the point where any normal person would say something like, "Excuse me, miss, are you okay? Is everything fine? I'm Spider-Man, I'm right behind you. Don't blast me." But Peter has been introduced as a pervert in this book who likes to be very stalkerish, so he decides instead the best idea would be to drop down right behind her. "Hey, pretty lady, you handle yourself, pretty zap." Even before Spider-Man's feet can touch the ground. Even as his special senses tell him that he's made a serious mistake. I'm pretty sure the pain in his chest would tell him that right now. A sudden burst of pure force sends him flying. Well, so Monica Rambeau realizes what she's done, the mistake she made, and figures, well, the pantsuit's messed up. I might as well get into my working clothes, as she says. And boom, ladies and gentlemen, the very first appearance of Monica Rambeau as Captain Marvel. We see Captain Marvel a little bit worried about the fact that she's losing control of her powers, but happy that she has pockets in her costume. Just as Spider-Man begins to wake up, "Oh, I feel like I've been danced on by the entire cast of a chorus line. Timely. This'll teach me to pay attention to my spider senses. Kabloom!" And he sees Captain Marvel just fly away in a ray of lightning. I must still be punchy. I could have sworn I saw a lady in a funky costume turn into a bolt of lightning, but that's impossible. Dude, you've seen Thor, you've seen the Hulk. Can we quit with the impossible talk? And Spider-Man sees that the Empire State Building lights up really quickly, understanding that it has to be Captain Marvel. To be honest, I think this would have made a much more striking and iconic cover for her first appearance. Yeah, you could still have the superheroes looking around going, "Oh my gosh, who's that?" And that would have been cool, but dang, this looks a heck of a lot better than what we got on the front of this book. To the north, Midtown Manhattan stretches out before her like a humble peasant bowing before its queen. It's even bigger than I'd imagined. So many people in the streets, they're almost like canyons. It's so different from home. So different from New Orleans. Diddle-loo, diddle-loo, diddle-loo. And she goes on to start remembering her origin story. We see Monica in her commanding officer's office, and she's complaining because she was passed over for a promotion to commander of apparently a patrol boat. And the commanding officer says, "If you must know, it's because your methods are too unorthodox. I go by the book, Monica, and I expect my men to do the same." To which she replies, "Your men. That's the real issue, isn't it? You don't want to see a woman in charge of a patrol boat." He says, "I'll pretend I didn't hear that accusation, Rambeau." And then makes a mention that maybe she went to the media after the last promotion. Maybe that's why you didn't get this one. And Rambeau, I don't want to hear any of your smart remarks echoed in the news media this time. Don't worry, sir. Nothing I do will make the patrol look bad. And then, of course, she's standing out. And here's something also. This guy says, "Uh-oh, looks like Monica's on the warpath again." As she's storming out saying, "Fine thing, I sweat and slave for this outfit, and what thanks do I get? I'll pretend I didn't hear that sanctimonious old tyrant." Not for nothing, but this may be the reason you're being passed over for the promotions there, Monica. Angrily, Monica storms into her office, but there she meets a gentleman, Professor Leclerc, an old friend of her grandfather's from World War II. He's a physicist, and he's discovered how to harness energy from other dimensions, but the only person who believes that he could do it is a South American dictator that funded his work, only to decide that he was going to turn it into a weapon. So Leclerc escapes his country with his life, as he says. Unfortunately, Leclerc's assistant continues the work for the South American dictator. Now he asks Rambeau if she could find a way to tell the authorities, because if this does get weaponized, it'll be worse than the nuclear bomb. Next, we see the two on a boat, and she explains her plan is to get on board of this oil rig and find out if there's anything fishy, and if there is, they hightail it out and get the Coast Guard, instead of just calling the Coast Guard and saying, "Hey, this is Officer Rambeau. We heard there's something fishy going on in this oil rig." Comic books, ladies and gentlemen. And we see Monica pulling the boat up towards the rig when she hears, "Ahoy, the boat! This is private property. You cannot tie up here. Time to go into my act." "Hello, I'm sorry. Has Roxanne changed his policies?" "Roxanne has leased this tower to us. This is a high security zone. You must leave at once." And ladies and gentlemen, this is when little Eglantine went through puberty. Twice. Oh darn, the old crew always let me picnic on their copter pad, and it's so nice and sunny today. And this works, ladies and gentlemen, as all the guys are like, holy Toledo, look at her. And then, of course, the boss says, why not? Let her up. So the dictator slash owner of the rig decides he's going to have that picnic with her on top of the helicopter pad, and she's a little uncomfortable because he's leering at her. Of course, she is in a bikini that is covered only by a small little robe, when all of a sudden there's an alarm. And of course, Monica Rambeau knows that it's the professor, so she tries to play it off saying, oh, I'm so scared. But Felipe isn't having any and says, I think you know more than what you're letting on. And when they go down to investigate the intruder alarm, they do discover Professor LaCroix. I forgot his name. The professor. Professor Leclerc, that was it. Professor Leclerc tells him, hey, Felipe, this isn't good. The energy's too unstable. But Felipe says, hey, it's unstable for you, but not for me. I've actually built the machine, and soon the power of the world is going to change. And Monica realizes, okay, I have to destroy the machine. She says, I don't know who's crazier, you or me. But then she starts punching the computer because that was her thing. Chris Redfield punches rocks. She's got the computers. It explodes. And then we see her later actually transported from where she was into some part of the city. And she ends up walking around the city, or at least the part she's in right now, disoriented, not feeling very good because there's obviously been some changes to her body. And she collapses up against a door wanting to get inside. And just by saying that, she ends up inside. And she said, what? I'm inside, but how? Where? And she decides that she needs to call her station. So she gives this emergency signal thing, overpowering her energies overpower, I guess, the circuit board for some reason, which sends her Mayday message louder. I don't think that's actually how that would work, but maybe feedback, I guess. And she says, emergency aboard Rocks and Oil Tower number 26. The guy acknowledges it and wonders what kind of power source she's using. Realizing that she's cold, she decides to do an exploration. Maybe she could find some coveralls or something. But then she finds out she's in a storage warehouse of an old costume factory. Isn't that so convenient, ladies and gentlemen? Saying that if I combine parts of a couple of outfits, I'll come up with something decent enough to be seen in. And today we have found, in a Mardi Gras costume shop, the makings for the Captain Marvel outfit. Well, not bad. At least the mask should spare me any personal embarrassment. I seem to be back in New Orleans. I wish I could remember how I got here. I hope the Navy could do something about the oil rig. If much time has passed, the professor might not be there anymore. Captain Marvel notices energy shooting up in the direction that she came from, where the oil rig was, and just thinking about how she wants to be beside the professor and to help him, she ends up transporting herself onto the helicopter pad, noticing that the soldiers are unconscious around her. Captain Marvel makes her way downstairs just in time to see Felipe shooting the professor. Quickly disarming Felipe, Captain Marvel goes to the professor and he tells her that the energy was going to explode either way. He didn't understand the power of it. Monica realizes that she had nothing to do with this big hole that's opening up in the air, as she puts it. But how do you plug up a hole in the air? Of course, you do it with her own body. Actually, it begins to pull her in, and when she gets into this little vortex, her body starts to naturally absorb the energy, and this causes an overload. So when she sees that once again Felipe is going to take another shot at the professor, she lashes out with the energy. This turns the bullet to dust, and then instantly she goes after the gun, but he doesn't lose a hand. I thought, oh, that would be so much better if the bad guy lost a hand on this. She picks up the professor, carries him out, as we see Felipe yelling, oh, Captain Marvilla, that kind of thing. And then we get to one of the best conversations in the book, where it's 2 days later at the Harbor Patrol HQ. Professor Leclerc, what have you found out? You seem jumpy, mon capitaine. Is something wrong? Wrong? I get caught in an explosion, turned into God knows what, and wind up saving 2 universes or so, you claim? And you ask me if anything's wrong? I've hardly slept. The past 2 nights, could we have imagined the whole thing? I like her being flabbergasted at the fact that after all of that happened, he goes, "Oh, something wrong?" It just appealed to me. I don't know. It touched the funny bone. But the professor says, no, as a matter of fact, your body shows that everything that happened did happen. It says, she goes, well, what does that mean? He says, what it means is you can change your body into any form of electromagnetic energy. You can actually become sentient packet of radio waves, light, even electricity. You can go through solid objects as X-rays. You can travel at the speed of light. What's more, you can release a small amount of energy as a blast of pure force with no appreciable loss of body mass. But I forget myself. Here, for you, what is it? And she opens the box, pulls out, see it's a version of her costume. I had a copy of your costume fabricated from the cloth composed of unstable molecules. I think you'll find it far more durable than the original. Wait, what? So what was the other costume made of? It didn't fall apart. Even though she was being sucked through a vortex between two dimensions, it didn't fall off when she changed into pure energy and back. So it seemed like she already had unstable molecules, dude. She tells him she doesn't think she'll ever put on the costume again, and he says, we all have a destiny, Mon Capitan. She says, don't call me that. You know I'm a lieutenant. And he says, oh, but not in the eyes of some. As it turns out, there were witnesses that had expressed her to be Captain Marvel, the savior, yada yada, and so she takes that as a sign, quits her job, and walks off into the sunset. So as Dewey Cox here finishes thinking about her entire life story before we can continue with the actual comic book, she decides that while the professor has taken her as far as she could, she feels the energy building up inside her more and more and more, so she has to find some serious scientific help. In the meantime, we see Spider-Man approach her from behind, and he's actually considering webbing her up, not knowing she's a good guy or a bad guy, just that his spider sense is going off. But Spider-Man wants to prove what a dick he is. I swear to gosh, he really is a dick in this issue, isn't he? So he does decide to web her, but she blinks out before the webbing hits, and he's jumping down. He goes, well, he actually says, well, no, if she's a good guy, she'll understand, and my chest still hurts. So it's pure vengeance. She doesn't even know he's chasing after her, and he figures, wait a second, she was looking at something. I need a quarter, which leads into an actual funny scene where he turns to a kid and says, hey, I need a quarter. And the kid's like, pull the other one. You're not Spider-Man. And he actually has to prove it in order to get a quarter to find out where Captain Marvel goes. The kid gives him it. He puts it in the machine and finds out that Captain Marvel went to the Baxter building. Meanwhile, at the Baxter building, Captain Marvel goes through some wreckage in Reed Richards' lab looking for anyone, wondering how anybody could be doing this, but at least it's being reconstructed, so the good guys won, she says, when the Thing walks up behind her, and he asks, who are you? And she replies with Captain Marvel. I love this dialogue. Not unless you came back from the dead by way of Denmark, you ain't. Marv died months ago. Besides, he was blonde. I like that one. But anyway, yeah, it's just good dialogue, and I don't know, they nail the character of the Thing here. There was another Captain Marvel? I'm sorry, I didn't know. Don't sweat it, Marv wouldn't mind. I probably ain't the only thing in the world either. Now suppose you tell me what you're doing here. And she does. She tells about the XX synergy, the fact that she needs somebody that will help her burn it off, and if she doesn't, she'll explode like a 1,000 megaton bomb. That gets the Thing's attention, and he says that Sue and Reed are vacationing at Martha's Vineyard. By the time he reached them, though, it'd be too late, so he should call the Avengers. You would think that Reed Richards could concoct something that would get him there quick, but I don't know. Alrighty, so he tries to hook up with the Avengers, and she says, that signal you've punched up, is it a direct line to the Avengers? And he says, matter of fact, it is. And she jumps into the computer just as Spider-Man jumps into the Baxter building and asks, have you seen a tall black lady in a silver black jumpsuit? Not for nothing, but Spider-Man's kind of inconsequential to this entire story, isn't he? I mean, like, really, really bad. They keep trying to shoehorn him in with this whole chase thing, but he doesn't need to be here. So Captain Marvel emerges through the electronic panels at the Avengers mansion, affecting everything in the mansion. All sorts of defensive modes go off, and it burns out Iron Man's armor. Even Gunn chases Jarvis out of the hallway. So Tony Stark's laying there and she's feeling bad. Oh my gosh, I knocked out Iron Man. And he's like, hey, I just need a tiny spark in the chest plate. Get me going again. And she's like, well, I can't control it like that. And he's like, all or nothing, huh? So I guess we're waiting around here for help. Jarvis comes in and sees Iron Man on the floor. Oh, this attack will not go unanswered. And he runs off to call the other Avengers. And Captain Marvel notices that her power level is actually rising when Spider-Man swings in. Everybody's blaming him. Hey, I wonder if he's responsible for this. And he gets a little offended, but then catches Jarvis and says, don't worry, help is just a sealing away. And he goes off to find Captain Marvel. Of course, she's walking out. She doesn't want to damage Iron Man. She's worried about everything because she feels the power growing when Spider-Man, who's just been a dick all throughout this, an ineffectual, inconsequential dick all throughout this book, decides now's the time he's going to web up Captain Marvel from head to toe. This was his plan all along. At the beginning, all he wanted to do was get her webs on her. I'm sure there's subtext somewhere around there. And she burns through it, and he's like, oh my gosh, no one could do that but the Juggernaut. She tries to blind him, but the spider sense makes it so he knows to shut his eyes, and then he reaches out to grab her. She defends herself by becoming electrical, and he bitch slaps her across the face to knock her out when Iron Man, God, what a dick. Just a pure freaking dick in this entire book. Like, go freaking, this is not your story, Spider-Man. Go find another book. Okay, I know it's got your name on it, but you're not needed here. So Iron Man and Wasp round the corner, and they're like, you young fool. And he's like, hey, I saw her attack you. And he's like, well, that was an accident, dick. Unless we can leech off her excess power, if you want to make amends, get me 12 feet of high inductive cable, or flex cable, from behind that ceiling panel. Coil it around her gently. And Captain Marvel says, Iron Man, what are you doing? I'm overriding my armor's microcircuit breakers. Wasp, the only thing at hand that can handle her kind of power is me. Spider-Man, that webbing of yours is non-conductor, right? I read you, Shellhead. And he attaches the power cords to his armor. And he says, web us up except for the wrists, you dick. Iron Man expresses doubt that this is going to work. And Spider-Man says, wow, I triggered this when I knocked her out, and decides, okay, he's going to stick around. Wasp actually tells him it's Captain Marvel, and he's like, wait, what? And he goes, no relation. And then Spider-Man's like, wow, I am a dick. And he webs up a shield for him and Wasp, and is like, well, if it doesn't work, nice knowing you, Jan. But, of course, Iron Man is able to focus the energy, really just blowing a couple of holes through the Avengers ceiling and outside. So everybody's relieved it worked, and then we see that the thing arrives at the Avengers mansion in time for the crowd to ask, are you going to be beating the teetotal hell out of that dick Spider-Man? So the thing wanders the hallways, grumbling as only the thing can, only to find out that the Avengers are having a party in Captain Marvel's honor here, and it makes me wonder if everybody was around that they could get there that quick for a party, why is it that only Wasp and Iron Man came to help? It just doesn't make sense. Then that's when the Spider-Man realized, wait a second, I was in that bus terminal, to meet up with Liz and Harry, and he decides to swing away. And then, of course, we get the scene in the bus terminal. He goes up, did anybody page me? They say no, but then it's like, hey, Pete. And like, hey, okay, we're good friends, let's meet. And they do the sign-off. The ever-loving sign-off. Watch for the next appearance of the exciting new Captain Marvel in Avengers 227. And there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is the first appearance of Captain Marvel. This was much more casual video that I usually make, and that's mainly because it was 40 pages long, and I just wanted to get through it while commenting. But the truth is, not a lot to comment on. This is a good book. This is a legitimately good. I think this is the best comic book that's been done so far in Comic Book Origins. It is so timeless. I truly enjoyed it, except for, of course, Spider-Man really does come off like a dick in this one. Let me know what you think, though. And, yeah, just go on down. Let me know what you think about the video, who you think I should do next in the comment section below. Don't forget to click like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. If you do like these videos, pick one of the ones that are popping up if you haven't seen them. And if you have, check them out again. There should be some cards popping up around here. Don't forget to help out the channel by going over to Patreon or to Ko-Fi. Links in the description below. And I'd like to thank everybody who's already done that. And to everyone, all of the true believers, thank you very, very much for watching.